The time has come to UV unwrap and texture our mug. So we did a little bit with our icing, our donut, and our plate. We got most of that for free. Those were very simple objects. This is a little more complex, so we're going to have some fun with it. So first things first, we need to apply a texture to it so that we can see the UV unwrapping and see that it's working well. So I'm going to hit N to bring up my properties, and I'm using the polygon add-on, and I'm going to apply the ceramic texture that we're going to use. So the free one that we're using for this tutorial, you can find by typing in donut 5. That'll bring up all the ones we're going to use in this tutorial. And the one we're using is this one, this rustic gold ceramic texture. So I've already downloaded it. So you'll see download. It'll look like download like that. And then with the mug selected, you want to hit apply. If the mug isn't selected like that, you'll see import, which would just like load it in as a like fake user material that you could reference. But anyways, so select the mug and then say apply. And now we can close that and let's take a look. Now you might be surprised at how well that came in. Like the handle's no good, but the rest of it is semi-okay, right? There's some stretching on the rim and the base, but like, why did that come in okay? So if you go to the UV editor here, you can see we got some islands, and this matches exactly what you would expect if you created a cylinder. So when we modeled this mug, you remember we started with a cylinder, and that's a primitive object, and Blender automatically UV unwraps the primitive objects for us. So everything that is still a cylinder form is okay, but everything else that we created from scratch, like this handle here, it has no idea what to do with it. So it's all stretched and all screwed up. So basically we have to start from scratch and do this again, but that's okay. That's the point of this tutorial, to learn how to do UV unwrapping. So as I explained with the icing, the best way to think about UV unwrapping is to imagine that this object was made of paper and we have to lay it flat onto a 2D surface, which is what this is over here. This is the 3D object. This is the flat surface it's being laid on. So it's like we are turning this into paper and we have to lay it flat. Where would you put the cuts on this object in order to make it flat there? And so the most obvious place you could think of if you're looking at doing this is like, I know for sure this handle has to be separated from the rest of it in order to start to lay it flat. By the way, before we start, it would probably help with your mug selected. In the modifiers, you've got this little box there that says on cage. So if it's turned off, it'll show you like the unsubdivided result around it, but then like parts of it get hidden by the mesh. So I usually turn it on just so that I can see it and like all the mesh is visible. It just makes UV unwrapping it a little bit easier. Okay, so the handle needs to be separated. So right here is an incision point, right? So I'm going to select these vertices here by holding down Shift and just Shift selecting. Then I'm going to hit Control E and then select Mark Seam. Now, Blender won't have updated yet, so this hasn't changed over here. So if in order to see that, we would first have to select the whole mesh, then go U and then select Unwrap. Or the method that I prefer to do, and I would suggest you do this too, in your 3D view over here, there's a little options drop down at the top there. If you click that and then select Live Unwrap, now whenever you do a seam, so let's just do another seam here, mark seam on the same spot, it will automatically do that UV unwrap for you. So that's really helpful. Now, it looks worse. You have to go backwards before you can go forwards, but that's okay. So we've only got one incision, so let's do another one, the other half of the handle. So down here, I'm going to select these points like so, and then hit Control E and then mark seam. Okay, so now it has changed. So we've got the handle here. Now, if you want to select just the handle, by the way, in the 3D viewport, if you just mouse over that part of the motion, the mesh, and then hit L, then in this little last use box here, if you select seam, it'll now just select the parts of the mesh that match that seam. By the way, I should also be in edge select mode. That would definitely be helpful because we're placing seams on edges. But yeah, if I do that now, that selection, you can clearly see that this is the part of the mesh, which is this handle over here. So it's been separated, okay? So we've got like two parts of the mesh. We've got all of them, this part of the mug, which is this mess over here. And then we've got this handle here, which is this part over here. So this is like somewhat unwrapped, but again, if this was made of paper, to lay it flat, we would have to do another incision. So when I'm placing a incision like this, like I have to place an incision somewhere here, right? Like here, 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 or here. And because a seam generally makes a seam, like a visible line in a texture that will often not be like lined up, that can look ugly, right? It's like, it's not a good look for a model. So often when you're placing a seam, you put it in a place that is hidden. So, I mean, it would be a really good spot if we had like a line right down the middle of the mug there, but next best thing, I'll place it just to the side there. So holding down Alt, select that edge. Now I'm going to hit Control E and then say seam. And now look at that. This now has been pretty well UV unwrapped, okay? That section there, that's pretty good. So now we just have to do the same for the rest of the mug here. And this is pretty easy to do. So it's, I mean, you can tell like one place we would have to put a cut would be like the base of it, like right here inside of our mug. So I'm going to hold down Alt just on this face at the bottom there. And I'm going to hit Control E and I'm going to say seam just to separate that single circle there out by itself. Now I need to put one cut that goes right down the, right down like here, like this part of a mesh. Like I need to do a cut right there. But again, that can create like a visible like line. So I want to try to hide it by putting it on like close to this handle here. Because also there are other seams here and it will just kind of help to just have it on one part of the mesh. Because like you could like move it and hide it by the camera and stuff like that. So it just helps to put it all in one place. So holding down Alt here, so Alt, click on that. So it goes all the way down to there. And then it kind of stops here on the handle there. So I'm going to select this line, just holding down Shift. And then I also want to do it right there. So holding down Alt on that. And now I'm going to hit Control E and then say Mark Seam. Okay, so now that's looking a lot more released, right? There's less tension in there, but there is still this like pinching effect happening at the bottom there. So just like in the middle there, when we selected that and separated it, I want to select this part of the mesh, which is underneath the mug, and I want to unwrap that. Or sorry, place a seam there. By the way, if you want to like, because we can't really get to that very easily, if you want to just see an object by itself, you can hit /. So in object mode with the mug selected, /. And now everything has vanished. Now, Blender doesn't do a very good job of showing you that you're just looking at an isolated view, except for at the top there where it says local. So there's many times when I'm using Blender and I'm like, where's the rest of my scene? And then I remember, oh, that's right, I'm in isolated mode. And you only know because it says local there. So you just have to remember, if like you ever get to that point of like, where is everything? What? Just / and it'll bring it back. Okay, so /, there we go. And by the way, if you don't have a / key, you can go to View and then go Local View, toggle Local View, like that. All right, so now that I've done that, I can get underneath my mug, edit mode, and I'll select this, say Control E, and then I'm going to say Mark Seam. Okay, so now when we look at this, you can see we have pretty well successfully UV unwrapped this, okay? Because these points are now, they've been flattened out. Now there's some stretching. There's always going to be some stretching, but as long as it is not like obvious, it's generally okay. But now what I want to do is I want to load in the actual texture that's being viewed here, so I can see where this like line is being viewed on the mug there. So from the drop down here, I'm going to select that base color, this little ceramic mug here, which by the way was actually scanned from a real mug that we bought and then scanned around it. So this actually matches like what you'd find in a store. So it's loaded in there. And now with this island, which I can select by hitting L like that, I can now, hitting R, I can start to rotate and move it around like this. Okay, so I'm going to place this, let's go, I'm just kind of guessing, but that is, yeah, that's the bottom of my mesh. If you don't know, like you can go into like face select mode and just like select a few faces and you can see them like update over there like that, which is cool. But yeah, so that's the bottom of the mug, which is good. And let's get that like, you know, try and get a straight line there, okay? And you can see we can't, right? We've got the line like going up here, and then we've got another line coming down here. And obviously we want these to meet, but how can we do that, right? Because the lines are doing that because this part of the mesh is all the way over here. And then the other part of the mesh is like, yeah, much higher up, right? So we essentially, in order to get this to line up, we need to make this island here look straight. Basically like, almost like what it was before when it was the default cylinder view. Now, there are some tools in Blender that let you like quickly align like one line, right? So if I selected this line here, I could right click and then I could say align auto, and you can see it would give me a pretty straight line for that one there. The problem is that it just does that one line. If I wanted to do all of it, I would have to do these like one by one like this. So Blender really needs a tool that would like let this happen like easily across an entire island. And although Blender doesn't have this tool, there is a free extension, and it's a great excuse to talk about extensions in Blender and how to install them. But yeah, there's a free one and it's amazing. And so I'm going to show you how to get it. So go to Edit, then Preferences, then go Get Extensions. And with a fresh install, it'll first ask you, do you want to let Blender read the internet? Because it's not going to do that without your permission. So say allow online access. And by the way, you can change that in the future if you want inside of System, allow online access. Anyways, now that you're here, in the top right-hand corner of the Get Extensions, there's a little unassuming drop-down. Then click on Visit Extensions Platform. You can also find it by just going to extensions.blender.org. Anyways, so these are all extensions that are, they're not made by Blender, so they're not like official, but they are all free. So they all have to meet the criteria of free. I believe there's some other things in there, like it has to, I don't know, probably like safety checks and things like that. But these just like expand the capabilities of Blender by the community. So the one that we're looking for is actually this one here, Mio3 UV, which you could find by just, I think, typing in UV. Weirdly, when I was typing in Mio3, oh no, that's right. Oh, it's Mio. Oh, that's why I wasn't finding it. It's Mio3. Okay, there you go. I thought Blender's search was so bad, but it was just Mio3, not Moi. All right, Mio3 UV. Okay, so this is the extension. Now you might think like I have to download something, unzip it, and do that. No, it's actually really simple. So all you do is you grab your browser like this, just like separate it to make it like a half window like this. Then all you're going to do is you're going to, in the bottom corner of this little window here where it says Get Add-on, you're going to click that. And then you get this like little outline box there. And see how your cursor changes to this little like crosshair thing? You just click and drag out from that and then drop it into Blender. And it'll now say, do you want to install it? And you say, yes, I do. And then that's it. You can see at the bottom there, it says installed Mio3_UV. And now in our UV editor over here in this window, if I hit N to bring up properties, you can see I've got a little option here that says Mio3. And look, we've got a bunch of options that I honestly have not played with, most of them. Most of the ones I'm looking for are right at the top here. So the one that I use all the time is Gridify. Okay, and look what happens as I click this. Dun dun! It does what we're looking for. It converted that from this like stretched like kind of view to making it look actually squarish and like a grid. And that is perfect. And now you can see that line there across the ceramic is lining up across it. So that is absolutely perfect. I have no complaints. It's worked perfectly well. I do, though, just want to apply it to this part of the handle as well, because the same thing would apply to that. I'll make sure I do it in face select mode. So I'll hit L. So I'm just selecting the handle by itself. And then here with it, or you can also just do it on the island itself there like that. And then go to Mio again, and I'm looking for Gridify. Okay, and there we go. Great. Now, you can position these however you want. So you can select an island by hitting L, and then you can like find a different portion of it. By the way, if you don't want to see the, like, because you can't really see the texture under it very well, sometimes I just disable the overlay at the top of the screen there. That will just like disable all the overlays so you can't see anything on the mesh there at all. So you just have to remember that it's doing that. But when I've got that, now I can like move things around and I can see them visualized on the actual mesh there, which is helpful. So if I wanted it to be like a larger looking texture, I could make it smaller, right? That's a kind of a look, or I could make it bigger, and I'll probably make it like somewhere in between, about there, I think actually looks kind of good. Actually, yeah, basically filling the space like that from like left to right, which is nice. And then for the handle, I need to also resize that. So I'm going to select this part of the handle. And by the way, you'll notice as you slide it off the screen there, it doesn't matter where it is because it's just going to be tiled, okay? So that texture is just tiling all the way to the left and to the right and above it. So yeah, so I can position this wherever I want, like so. Now you can see here, this little empty patch here, right? This is one part of the handle cut, right? It's that section. And then this section here would be this right here. So if you actually wanted to line it up to be perfect and also get the texture, it's called like matching the texel density across the islands. But yeah, you could like scale this down to be like roughly the same portion, like the same part of the mesh if you want to. There's still like there's extra stretching and stuff in there. The other thing I sometimes do is like I look at the size of a square like this, and then I go like, what is the size of the square over here? And it's like, all right, that's pretty close, but I can see it needs to be stretched like further this way, right? Because this is more rectangular than this. This is more kind of squarish. So I'm going to select this whole island and I can hit S and then Y. Like so. So till they're kind of the same size like that. And then just to make them fit, I would scale that down again. And there you go. And now I'm just going to move that up a little bit just so that this part here of my texture, I want it to kind of line up there. I don't even know actually if this is physically possible. Maybe somebody who works in pottery will tell me. But like, see how it looks like it's kind of like dipped in something? I don't even know if that's like something that is like painted or like branded or something. Like, can it go halfway up the handle as well? I'm assuming it is. Maybe I thought it was like dipped in something, but that could be like, this could be a completely implausible mug is all I'm saying. But that's how it is in 3D. Like you have artists that have like never done engineering before and they design a robot and they're like, and everyone's like, yeah, that looks cool. And then like all the people in engineering are like, that's never gonna fly, but that's fine. It's part of the fun of it. Okay, now there's a lot of stretching going on right here, and that's because this Gridify thing, as good as it is, you can see that this part, right, it's really like shrunk it in there, and it's made it a really thin line. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go into edge select mode by hitting 2, and I'm going to select that edge. Oh, okay, I can't select that edge very well. I'll just shift select them one by one like that. And then I'm just going to pull it up just to add more detail there, like so. And I think it is also like stretched a little bit because it's kind of like wrapped around it and it's kind of like peeling outwards a little bit. I think it works a little bit better if you also scale that part out a little more. So I'm just scaling out that line. And you can see that has now blended in pretty seamlessly. Like that's about, I mean, it's a little messy there, but it's about as good as it would get on that. That's pretty good. And then I'll just do the same for the bottom part here. So I'll select these edges. Actually, no, I'll do it over here. And you can see you get both parts of it, right? Because that line there exists across 2 islands, right? This island and then this island here. So anyways, I'll select this in the editor here. And then I'm going to pull it down to give me more data. And then I'm going to scale it out a little bit as well. And look at that. That's pretty good. We've got a pretty seamless looking result. I mean, and honestly, that's about as good as it gets. And by the way, I should have said, like, it doesn't actually matter that the UV islands are overlapping here, but it does matter if you were to be painting onto this. And the reason that makes a difference is like, you can imagine if you were doing a paintbrush and you had painted parts of the mesh here and like one part was for the handle and this part was for that. If you had islands that were overlapping each other, then you would have like different parts of the painting like appearing twice across it. So there's kind of like 2 styles to UV unwrapping. This is the simplest one, which is just like if you've got an image that you've got off the internet or a texture or whatever that's just being tiled across it or even not tiled, like it doesn't matter if things are overlapping because, the texture is different enough, your eye's not going to spot it. But if it's painted, yes, they do have to be separate parts. And another thing as well, if you're UV unwrapping for a game asset, it's even more complex because all the islands have to be separated, but there's also like margin because like in games, you develop like multiple versions of a mesh at different resolutions. Then there's different texture resolutions. So you have to create like big margins and it gets all like complicated. It's like a completely separate thing. So if you wanted to texture for games, you should probably look at like game texturing type tutorials if you really wanted to go into that. But anyways, the rest of it is fine. Like that part of it, all this like stretching in here, if you wanted to fix that, you could. It doesn't matter because we're going to put some like coffee foam along the top there. The base of it doesn't matter because we're not going to see it. So yeah. But that's also the thing to consider is like, you know, when people are like on Twitter and they're like, look at this model, look how terrible it is. It's like, yeah, it might be for a purpose like this. It's designed to be viewed from above, and that's all it needs to do. Like if you've like pulled it apart and it's like, how terrible does it look? It's like, yeah, the camera was never going to go in there or under there. So that's why it doesn't matter. Anyways, all right, so the mug is pretty good. The only thing I'll do is I'm going to go to my material over here. I'll go to my shading tab at the top there so that I can access the nodes here. And I'll just make a few tweaks to it. Just like before, when I mentioned these maps here, like this is going to give you the physically accurate data from the actual ceramic that we scanned, right? And it's like color calibrated and everything like that. But sometimes you want artistic control, and I want this to look shinier. This is a little dull for me. So I'm going to disconnect my roughness here, and then I'm just going to play with this slider like so. So I've still got the bump. So like most of the detail that I want is still there, but like I don't need to look as dull as it was. So that is pretty good. I also don't need the metallic shader. Like that's just superfluous. There's another one here, ORM. Oh, sorry, not ORM. Ambient occlusion, or AO. This is another one which is completely unnecessary. It's just for like crevices of information, but this is like flat ceramic, so there's no crevices. We have to provide it like standardized for all of our materials, so they're all uniform, but a lot of materials just don't need it. So in a case like this, I just don't want the AO, like this map here. So I could just like disconnect that. Or actually, if you want to delete something like this and you want it to retain its connection, rather than just deleting it, because then you have to manually connect it, if you hit Control X, it will delete it and retain its connection. So that's just a little tip there for you. Okay, great. So now let's go back to my layout mode over here. Let's have a look at it with our lighting, and that is pretty good. Now, the only thing I will change, though, looking at this, is this concrete is mighty pale. It doesn't look very good. It doesn't look very luxurious, like a cafe, like a highfalutin. Ooh, look at me! I'm paying $9 for a coffee, aren't I fancy? It doesn't look like that, right? It looks like dusty, like a workman floor. So we can adjust this by going to the shade tab. So this is a great excuse to go a little into the nodes. Right, so this is the one that we actually manually set up. So it's, you know, it's pretty clean. We just got a base color and we've got a normal map, right? But between here and here where it connects, we can adjust the color of this. And I'm going to show you how simple you can completely transform the look of a texture. So if I hit Shift A, or just go to Add at the top there, then go to Color. And there's a bunch of different color options like brightness and contrast. I wouldn't use that. That's like what is brightness, what is contrast? There's a whole like color debate and things. Color ramp can be useful if you just want to like convert something to like your own set of colors. Hue saturation value, we use that. The one I'm looking for though is RGB curves. So if I drop this in here, this will give me, if you're familiar with RGB curves from like Photoshop or DaVinci or anything like that, this will let you do like an S-log kind of curve. So essentially, this data at the bottom here, this is your dark tones. This would be your midtones, this would be your highlights, and this is like your clipped like highlights at the top there. But you can see if I make this look like a ramp like this, it starts to look more contrasted, right? And I pull it all the way down. I can like really transform this and make it look really contrasted. And look at how different that looks already, right? From just this one little thing, you wouldn't imagine you could convert it like this, but that's a simple thing and it's already looking good. And then I want to bring out some of the whites as well. So I can just add at the top here, just a little curve that goes the other way. So it kind of exaggerates some of those whites. Okay, great. That's pretty good. But now the other thing is like, because I've like crunched it and made it a little more contrasty, it's also brought out some of the colors, which are looking a little like yellowy green, which is a little unappealing. Kind of like this table would be like a little moldy, not great. So instead, to improve it, I can add another node. As I mentioned, I use this one a lot, hue saturation value. So if I drop this in and I drop it in here, you could also put it before the curves or after, doesn't really matter. And then I just want to drop the saturation here and watch this. Watch how completely transformed this becomes. Woohoo, look at that. Doesn't that look nice? I think it looks nice. It's like, and you can turn off these nodes, by the way, like temporarily. If you want to mute something, it's M for mute. and you can select that and mute it. So this is what we started with. And then just with 2 nodes, we converted this pale looking concrete into this, which is crazy. Pretty cool. Anyways, so that's nice. And then, you can obviously play with the roughness and stuff, and we'll get to that when we go to the lighting a little bit more. But that is looking good. Oh, the other thing, of course, we need to add is our coffee foam. And this one is super easy, and it's another chance to talk about another type of texture, which you can find on sites like Polygon. But we need to add coffee foam to this. And to do that, we need to start with an object that is going to obviously fill the top of this. And obviously, we could go in here and we could like add in a circle and do that kind of thing. But it's also smart to think about like, how can I save time by reusing part of my mesh that I already have? So I already know the exact size that the foam to fit my mug, because I already have a mug here with a circle in it, right? Look at this line. That is a circle. If I could just take that and make it a new object, I can use it. So to do that, I can select that line and then hit Shift D, right? I've got my circle now. Then I want to hit Escape, okay? So it's now just brought it back to where it was. And now I'm going to hit P. P is how you separate something to a new object. So you're separating part of the mesh. So now I'm going to hit Selection like that. And now if I go over to my outliner here, we should see 2 mugs. So this is my original mug, and then this is my mug.001, okay? So I'm going to call this my foam, like that. And now I'm going to go into edit mode. Let's put it in edit mode. All right, and I'll turn off the that little view there so that I can just see, where is it? Hold on a second. Huh? All right, okay. So you have to go into wireframe mode in order to see it there. But yeah, that is my my circle. And actually, yeah, I should just be in my layout mode, shouldn't I? Not in shading, I should be in layout. So I'm gonna go here. Let's do the same thing, wireframe mode. Okay. So this circle obviously isn't being rendered because there's no face on it. So if I go into here, into wireframe, I need to create a face on that. And I can do that by hitting F, okay? So I've now got a face and it's completely flat across it. And this is okay, and this would, it'd work for most things, but there is a small detail that you notice when you look at like if you've got coffee on your desk right now, if you have a look at it, where the coffee, like where the water meets the actual edge there, there's like surface tension, and it actually rises up against the edge there. And you might think that is like a negligible detail, but that line there always catches light. And when it's missing, the eye goes like, that looks fake. So it's a very small thing, but we can add that line in here very simply. So in edit mode, going back in wireframe mode, so with our solid face here, I can create an inset. Okay, have we talked about insets? I'm trying to think. Yeah, we did a little, yeah, we've done some insets. Okay, but yeah, you hit I, okay, to do an inset. And that's just like creating a line like that goes all the way around that one single face there. And now I can put it like, yeah, let's go right there. And then right underneath it, I'm just going to, right here, I'm going to hit G and then Z to bring it down like so. And then now let's have a look at it in solid view mode and look at that. So I've now got it and it's pretty good. I might just do another inset because it's got this like crimped kind of effect there. So I'm going to hit I just so that it's not so noticeable on that portion. Okay, nice. And now all I need to do is right click it and say shade smooth. So now I've got a little raised edge to it. Excellent. By the way, quick little opportunity to talk about something. Like, it's kind of hard to see that raised edge there. It is there, but it's just like the lighting doesn't really make it visible. So sometimes when you're modeling, it can be helpful to change the way things are displayed here. So there's a really powerful tool in the top right-hand corner. The default lighting is studio. If you go to matte cap and then click this ball here, you've got all these options which can show you different views. It's actually how I create some of my 3D, my YouTube thumbnails, because some of these look really beautiful. But like you can see, that's so much more useful for seeing what that edge actually looks like there on that. And there's some like this, which are designed to like show you where there is like artifacting on your mesh, because it'll reveal problems with the mesh that you otherwise might not have seen. And these are new in Blender 5.0. They redid the matte caps, I should say. But anyways, it's cool. It's nice to have, but we don't really need it. Okay, so to give it a coffee foam texture, I'm going to hit N to bring up my properties over here, and then I'm going to download my coffee foam atlas texture. So let's hit download, and then with it selected, I'm going to hit apply. And if I go into rendered view mode, it should look like that. Let's go to the UV editor, okay, because I don't think it's been UV unwrapped. Nope, it has not been UV unwrapped. And then I'm going to go into top view mode by hitting 7. And then I'm just going to say U and then go unwrap angle based like that. Now I want to see this on my coffee atlas because this is a special texture and it's called an atlas texture. I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so it looks like this. And this is a bunch of different coffee foams that you get to choose from. And so in edit mode, with this UV selection here, I need to scale this down over the coffee foams. And then I just move them around to the one that I want. Like, what sort of coffee foam do you want on your mug, right? Like some bubbles. Funny story with the coffee foam, like the annoying thing about having like an asset company is every subject it's like trying to reinvent the wheel. Cause like, how do you create a texture for coffee foam? Because you could photograph it, but then how do you get the detail of like the bubbles, right? Because like bubbles, you can't get the shape of those bubbles. Like, so we used like substance first. Like we hired somebody to make some very expensive substance materials. I can't remember what we paid, $2,000 or something like that. But then there are some things which are just like really hard to do procedurally with substance. Substance, if you don't know, it's like a completely separate texturing software. It's very complicated, all node-based. But we got somebody like super skilled, and it's just really hard to get the detail of bubbles here. And then we had a guy on our team who was like on Saturday, he's like, look, I don't know if this is going to work, but I took some photographs of some coffee, and then I took it into Substance Painter and I manually placed the bubbles so that they all have the exact like shape of the detail. And it worked. And it was like, sometimes the cheap and easy, I mean, it was, it still took him a day to do it, but like it actually works. But yeah, it's kind of like we just have to guess what's actually going to work for it and just kind of wing it. But anyways, you can pick whichever one you want. I can't even remember which one I used for the, oh yeah, it was that one at the top. That was what I used in the animation. But I'll let you choose because you've got 9 choices to choose from. Some of them frothy, espresso looking, but that was the one that I went with. Now, if you go to render it, you might find, I'm not actually seeing it on this one. First time I brought it in, there was in the shading tab, because it treats this as like alpha. Yeah, so I thought it treated that as like alpha. We don't really need that alpha. Like alpha will make something like transparent, but there's nothing transparent on this. So if you see any like see-through stuff or whatever, you might just have to disconnect that. I don't need metallic. I do need the roughness, the base, and the normal, so I'm going to keep those. And I also don't need my AO, so I'm going to Control X on that. And there we go. So that was the very basics of UV unwrapping. If you want to go further and learn how to UV unwrap something a lot more detailed with hard, flat surfaces, placing the cuts in the right spots to avoid stretching, as well as how to UV unwrap something smooth and organic, and then texture it using procedural textures, painted textures, that's all covered in my course called the Beginner's Academy, which I designed for people who have finished this tutorial and want to go further. So if you're interested in that, the link for that is beneath this video. Otherwise, let's continue on with finalizing our donut scene by clicking this video on screen.